bit. I didn't feel like you.
Where were you last night? San Diego?
Well, no, actually, Carol, they drove these kids.
In October of, I'm going to get this right, 1587? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I gotta make sure the right year. In Morro Bay, or somewheres around there, according to some people.
Do you know where Morro Bay is? Some people don't know.
My wife has asked me a question too. So anyway, yeah, I know, I've been there.
How about
I even
the
biked
young,
by there. He's right.
the young kids don't know?
The young kids. Do the young kids know where Morro Bay is? The young kids are all outside weekending right now. They're not in here.
Young kids probably don't care.
Ron, your students are supposed to be in here. We're starting.
You know what? October's not over yet.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
They
sometime
were
in October.
volunteering
We'll come back.
earlier.
All right, so they already know the answer anyway, because Ron knows how to teach them well. So anyway, Spanish galleon,
And they got a bookmark too.
and you got a bookmark too. Okay, it has the answer on it, so
The
if you
answer
have
is
a
here.
bookmark, you can cheat and look at the answer. Well, anyway, because of the galleon trade between Acapulco and Manila, a ship came on shore there, and among those who were piloting the ship as navigators and also working as deckhands were a number of Filipinos, or in those days, since they were under Spain, Los Indios, they were called, or Los Luzon Indios, from Luzon. They came on shore, and they were the first Filipinos to actually land on the North American continent, as far as we know. So that's recorded pretty accurately but the place is sometimes disputed of exactly where that is. But anyway, if you go up to Morro Bay, you'll find that there's a placard that's been put there through the funds of the community and a recognition of, I think, the state or the city to recognize that that's the place where Filipinos first landed in the U.S. And so, to commemorate that, being it was in October, October is now celebrated as Filipino American History Month. And if you picked up one of the flyers as you came in, there's a whole explanation of the different struggles, really, to get that recognized by the government. So it was, we recognize it here in the city of Carson, it's recognized in the state of California, and it's been recognized by the state, by the Senate. So it's actually all the way out there. Now it's a matter of like, how does it get celebrated? It's not like, it's not as well known as February as African American or Black History Month, but it is nonetheless recognized. So it's up to us to make sure that it gets celebrated and recognized. So that's why we're having the event here. And if you have time, I have a display of artifacts in the lobby as well in the display case. And this was primarily promoted through the efforts of the FANS, the Filipino American National Historical Society, who are also one of the co-sponsors of today's event. The other co-sponsors are the Filipino American Library and the Asian Pacific American Librarians Association, and with cooperation with the Carson Library, which we did not get formal co-sponsorship, but we will in the future. So anyway, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-partner, my lovely partner in life,
Speak later.
and so she's going to talk about it. But that's Rose Ibanez, co-author of the book. So the idea today was to bring the book to life by bringing people in the book out and having them speak to their experiences here in Carson and in the South Bay. And then we were lucky enough to also find out at the last minute that Johnny Itliong, the son of Larry Itliong, who was one of the co-founders of the United Farm Workers Union, was available and was willing to drive all the way down from Ventura to come join us today and celebrate his dad's, would have been his 100th birthday. So we have cake out there for him, baby cakes that everybody's looking at and eyeing suspiciously. So without further ado, I'd like to bring the mic over to the Fonz folks and let them go ahead and get started. So it'll be Fonz, then we have Johnny Itliong, and then we have Talk Story. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Professor Ron Takaki, we are not strangers from a different shore. We're an integral part of society. In addition to Filipino American History Month, we celebrate Larry Itliong Day, and the legacy of Filipino Americans in the American labor movement. And representing us today, we have members of FON's Los Angeles chapter. We have a national conference, FON's National Conference, forthcoming in summer of 2014. And for more information, you can go to our main website at fonsnational.org. Florante rightfully acknowledged the aid of this this event, thanks to the aid of Carson Library, the Asia Pacific Librarians Association. We have to thank Florante and Rose as well, because, you know, needless to say. And we should also acknowledge our volunteers from the Stephen White Middle School Filipino Club. Our future, properly in good hands right there. Sorry, well, Filipino Club anyway. All of our volunteers here today. Participating today, of course, we have Mr. Johnny Itliong, who will be speaking about his father's legacy later. And I'd like to acknowledge at this time my fellow board members of FONS LA. We have Francine Rodada with us today. We have Uncle Phil Ventura, who is a FONS National Trustee and our treasurer as well. And of course, I'd like to introduce a co-founder and board member of the Larry Itliong Foundation Through Education, the vice president of FONS LA, and a FONS trustee, Mr. Ron Buenaventura, who will be coming to share some literary arts, some spoken word with everyone, and who's also a teacher and advisor to many of our volunteers here today. So without further ado, to begin our program, I'd like to call Ron to kick things off, so to speak. Welcome, one and all.
This was done at 5 classes, 2 at Halldale Elementary, 3 at Carroldale Learning Center, and then we did it yesterday when we had our drama in the barangay, Filipino spoken word poetry. My favorite gulay. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I really love my nanay's gulay. After a long day at school, I'll admit, I act the fool, breaking the rules, looking at my stool as I sit patiently, waiting, perseverating, and now I'm sweating for my nanay to pour my favorite stew. I don't know what it is, something about it that makes me wish. Maybe it's the chicken broth, the way it simmers with the sauce, boiling in the tall pot. Maybe it's the sprinkle of pepper, the salt, patis, and whatever. Chopped up garlic, teased with olive oil, ginger and green papaya slices, hand cut over the spices. It's whatever Nanay says. Small pieces of chicken thighs makes me realize that it's really the gulay that makes for surprise. Whatever it is, it's all these ingredients that makes me want to eat all of it. My nanay's gulay now tops it. And so finally I'm home. I hear my stomach groan and moan. I'm ready to receive and eat without saying cheese. This isn't breakfast in the morning, LA Unified. It's my nanay pouring into my small maliit bowl. My favorite gulay, chicken tinola with white rice. And that's no lie. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for just being here. A lot of us are here because, you know, this is a volunteer effort. You know, I'm with FONS, Filipino American National Historical Society. I'm also here with Johnny Itliong. We're with the Larry Itliong Foundation on Education. We're just here to, you know, spread the word, because when young people look in the books and they don't see themselves, students of color, I'm talking about black, Mexican, you know, Latino, Filipino, where are you supposed to go? You know, I posed this to my Carroldale learning students. Where are you going to go if you want to learn something about yourself? So, you know, being, you know, a school psychologist within LA Unified, one of the first things I did is I went looking for 6th graders. you know, I started age 10, age 11 for young people. And for a while, for 4 years, when I was at Stephen White, you know, I'll admit, she don't want to be known, but her name is Christian. She's sitting right there. She was my first 6th grader when I first started. Therese, raise your hand. She was an 8th grader at the time. Okay, we didn't have officers yet because I just started. I didn't know what I was doing. But it was my first experience at a middle school, at Stephen White Middle School. That was 4 years ago. Since then, we've evolved. Now, but what was it? And one of the things we did was we took something like Filipino American History Month, which was October. I threw down the resolution for the young people. I said, you're going to look at this, you're going to help me decorate. They said, why? Because I asked you to. and I wanted them to see what it's like to struggle. I wanted them to identify their experiences. I wanted them to know what their identity was about. And it wasn't for Filipino. I wanted them to see beyond Filipino. You got to, because if you're going to have food in the back, and you don't invite your neighbors, and you don't let other people eat, then what kind of Filipino are you? You know, because a true Filipino party lets everybody eat, no matter what. Because you don't say, okay, all you Tagalog and all you, okay, you can't eat yet. No, everybody comes together, and that's really what Filipino culture is supposed to be about. It's about bringing everybody together. So the next piece, and this is how I brought my Latino kids together. It's called Satisfied, Satisfied, Satisfied. I'm not sure if you can relate. I just need to tell you about my favorite state, as it goes hand in hand with my deep fried potato slices. It's that smell in the air that makes me not care, that makes everyone stare at me. That look of excitement makes me just want it. It's the way the marinade embraces the steak, the droplets of oil touching my beefsteak, sipping through the yellow plastic, spilling into my fingertips, wrapped in my favorite flour tortilla. Inside, ay mamacita, diced onion, thin sliced tomatoes, cilantro chopped. Next, I'm ready for my next bite. No need to ask me twice. Guacamole dripping from the side. Can you guess what I'm trying to hide from my sixth period teacher, our principal, Miss Rowe? This is just a teaser. My favorite steak, crispy, country, fried. Do I sound like I'm telling a lie for our drama in the barangay? My favorite Mexican food, carne asada fried. Satisfied, satisfied, satisfied. I feel that if you're going to invite young people, you need to have some food. You know, one of the things we did at Stephen White every Friday, Adobo Day Friday, you know, we had to do something because, you know, how you gonna get to know people if you don't eat together, if you don't get together, if you see another Filipino walking by and you don't even say hi. What kind of Filipino are you? I don't care if you're born in the Philippines or American, you have to somehow do something and talk. And that's just what I had expected students to do. You know, I don't want you to just get straight A's and that's it. I want you to use your right hand to write and do your academics, but your left hand, where's the one is? Go get the, go clean. You know, one of the traditions we had was the sixth graders clean. I don't care if you just got in here, especially your boy, you can't sit down. So one of the things I had to foster was to create something that's going to keep them going. And we would meet every Thursday. You know, when I first got there, it was 5 days a week. Then budget cut. Okay, 4 days. Following year, 3.5. Year after that, 4. Then I got moved up. And fortunately, I'm at Carroldale now, and I had to tell the students, it's not a club because you don't have a constitution. When I got to Stephen White, there was already something, but the office manager told me I had to create a constitution, so I made one. So one of the requirements was you have to come to 5 consecutive meetings. If you don't come, I don't know you, I didn't memorize your name, why are you touching my rights? You know, but you have to humor. Of course, as things went around, we made t-shirts, we made customized badges, you know, because if you're gonna be welcoming other kids, you better be a kind person. So we made a Mabait badge. Then you have to be smart, so we made a Matalino badge. Then you have to be hardworking, so we made a Masipag badge. So what I did is that we used Tagalog for American stuff. We didn't use Tagalog to create segregation, because how often you go in the community and you meet an auntie and uncle, do you speak Tagalog? What do you think my answer is? Do I have to? You know, I didn't need that with my first master's degree. You know, I felt like, you know, why do I need to speak the language? I don't ask you, do you speak English? You know, but at the same time, I understand there are some things that within our culture happens, and you got to deal with it. When I was at Stephen White, every week, if not almost every period, every day, I had a young Pinay crying in my office. And the reason was because they were either being bullied, someone was threatening them, someone was saying some you know, foul language, some bad words. I believe every young person should have a support group of any kind. When we were at C1, it was a Filipino club. And like I said, I invited everybody in. But while we were there, and since I happened to be Pinoy, I had to use a platform that was acceptable for everybody. And I would invite guest speakers, you know, this guy named Itliong. I don't know, he started a grape strike or something like that in Delano, California. And he dared me to do something. So one of the things I did was, okay, he asked me if I can write this poem for him. So this one's called Grape Strike Oversight. Leo, this is the one I told you I'm gonna unleash with, okay? Kicked up with dirt, beaten with sticks, sprayed down with pesticides, nowhere to hide, anywhere in the grapevine, hurled with foul words, bruised, blackened eye, hit across the face. This wasn't the national anthem, paraded around downtown as underrepresented, uneducated, non-white, immigrant, non-English speaking, and common folks carried picket signs chanting Dahil Sayo. The Grape Strike of 1965 did not have choreographed bamboo sticks hitting the ground, making the sound that isang baksak rattan clashing sound. Rather, it was a stand against the grape owners, the plantation owners who wanted cheap laborers, Mexicans and Filipinos, bending their backs forward to fill countless boxes of grapes, facing the hate as they filled in grape box number 8. A movement that touched off the largest farm workers movement, a 5-year strike that rallied 1,500 Filipino farm workers, picket signs that read America's Forgotten Poor. Backed up with anger, fueled up with rage, frustration deepening, the system messed up, Filipinos fed up, the need for change all over the place. Strategically coordinated, purple, green, grapes, buried, Itliong led. That's what the story I read. That's what Johnny Itliong said. September 8th, before any Chicano questioned their tactics, pure semantics, let the people be the judge of that. Eventually, Cesar Chavez steps in after all the beating, suffering, and bleeding had settled in. Filipinos picketing, Filipinos complaining, Filipinos displaying, Filipinos expressing their frustration, speaking out while taking the blame, taking the hits, taking bullets for what Fred Cordova described in his book, Filipinos, Forgotten Asian Americans in Intolerable Working Conditions. The last paragraph on page 75. Filipinos paved the way. This isn't a made-up story. Funny how 47, 48 years later, none of this exists. The story untold, Filipinos portrayed as bold. All this does not even appear in mainstream history books, K through 12, California content standards. How will they handle all of the Filipino anger? Pinoy sacrifice continues to be kicked up with dirt. Another oversight, again overlooked. Crazy Asians generalizing our contributions as if we're not allowed to talk back. As we continue to take the hits, all of this depending upon who's willing to write it. New York Times article, okay, all right. Rob Bonta, okay, I think I get it now. Larry Itliong's legacy continues to be questioned, not even mentioned. Folks still wondering his role, his part, still a mystery, especially those lacking critical thinking skills to self-examining Filipino American history. I did that last year. But I think it's important that if you're a young person and you gotta wait to go to college to get information about who you are, I think that's a disservice. You gotta go somewhere to go find it. And sometimes it's the oral presentation, or it's just having a dialogue. I mean, that's what Filipino Club was. It was a dialogue. Everything was live. It's not on Facebook, because we're not there. You can't find us unless, you know someone, And now, this young generation of middle school, they're all into Instagram. So when I do flyers, they have to be square now. They gotta drop the rectangle, And of course, research is showing that less and less young people are using Facebook. So, I say this to community leaders, is that if you're gonna connect with young people, yeah, provide some food. Go get some more candy if you want. But also teach them some things about life, on how to deal with stuff. Because it's really calm at Carroldale. I'm not used to the, well-behaved young Pinoy. It's tripping me out, but it's okay. Because I work with Mr. Medina, counselor, Filipino there. I work with Mr. Delano, Mr. Estacio, and I have yet to meet the other two Filipino teachers, but I want them to know I'm here, and I'm here to help young people. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I got one more if you want to hear it. One more good. Okay. I think what it is again is that, look, I was trained by Fred Cordova, Uncle Fred, 18 years ago, and he made me sit and do the tables. I sold my first t-shirt at University of San Diego, and then I learned a lot. I went to Stockton, I went to New York, I went to Seattle, Virginia Beach. I went to the last 8 national conferences. San Diego is our next one, next summer, July 30th, August 2nd. Guess who's doing the tour? I'm in charge of the tour. So I'd suggest you sign up early, because we only gonna have 3 buses, But, part of it too is just to let people know that, we're trying to put stuff out there. Of course you have to register. Of course, things cost money, but we hope that, you participate. Alan, there's a poster that I have up. Look, I'm an educator, okay? This poster, I took the Filipino American timeline and I randomized it. I said, let's throw it everywhere. And I did it because I want young people to have an idea of what it meant to be Filipino. The books are in light gray, the sources. The years are in another other side of the t-shirt. I made it into a poster board, a poster board that's displayed at 3 schools: Carroldale Learning Center, Stephen White, and Halldale Elementary. 3 schools within LA Unified. And then at the same time, it's the back of the t-shirt, or the front, depending on which one you buy. And there's a bookmark that we're passing next to the Pulumpias. See that? And the ants here. So, you can buy the poster if you want. It's our fundraiser. You can buy the t-shirt too. Because if you can't find the book, well then why buy a t-shirt? Do it, wear it, do something. I was gonna do another one, but I don't want to keep rambling. Unless you guys want to hear it. Take it off. Encore. No. All right, this is a nice one. It's called garlic fried rice.
We're making
Garlic fried rice tastes so nice when me and my cousin Katrina are eating it twice. Whether on a Saturday or on a Sunday, me and my cousin Katrina can eat it all morning, all day because it's our way of saying, hey. That long silog tastes so good when we mix it up with our egg yolk and the rest of the food. It goes beyond imagination of how me and my cousin Katrina will be handling our rice bowl and short plate. I know you can all relate when we grab that leftover steak, heat it up in the microwave. Just another way of how we'll create our favorite bowl of morning food. The combination with garlic fried rice and food tastes so good when me and cousin Katrina are eating it up in our favorite barangay. That's Tagalog for hood. Where was I? That long silog, longganisa, and itlog tastes so good, puts us in a good mood when we are eating in our hood. That leftover dried up ham from last Thursday night Pinoy jam goes great when we mix it up with that thin sliced spam. See what we do when we warm it up? That slightly burned tocino makes all the Filipinos, ay, nice, oh, wow, that tastes good. Stop in your tracks. Realizing that dark red meat, how I could taste it from the top of my ulo to the bottom of my feet, all of it will go great. What we're about to eat, hey, don't touch my longganisa or else apukin kita. I mean, me and my cousin Katrina know how to make our mouth smile when we say it again and again. That garlic fried rice tastes so nice when me and my cousin Katrina are eating it twice. Thank you.
These are our educators teaching your children today. In a good way. And now we're going to do a little switcheroo with the computers and bring up Johnny Itliong to talk about his dad. Open seats if you can find them in between people.
Thank you so much.
Don't be shy, we're all
Thank you.
yeah.
Come on in, folks. There's more seats. There's some open seats up front. Grab one. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let me get ready here, folks. Good, great. Hello, everybody. How's it going here in Carson? Yeah, everybody good? Anybody here from Carson? Yeah. Okay, let's live it up. Welcome, folks. First, I'd like to say happy Larry Itliong Day. His 100th birthday was yesterday, and I'm here to celebrate his birthday as well. And we do have cake. And if you look here on the screen here, there's going to be a lot of pictures up here, of course, of my father and about other events that I've been to, and just of a lot of these were unpublished, and some of them are published. So and up here on the wall, here that I have some other pictures too as well. I have 4 or 5 different resolutions in the Carson proclamation. Actually, is now a resolution of October 25th, the Itliong Day in the city of Carson, the first city to give Larry a day of recognition. And it was Councilman Alito Santorina who was the author of Larry Itliong Day. and thanks to him that we were able to do this. Also because of, did you see the people who are here sponsoring this program, Fonz and Rose and Florante. I too am a member of Fonz, and because of Fonz, I'm able to go around and to different places and different events and represent Larry and the Delano Manongs, and which we started the Larry Itliong Foundation on Education. And the same people who are in Fonz are the board members of the Larry Itliong Foundation for Education. And this foundation, we started to help educate everybody, not just Filipinos, but all Americans, on the history of the Filipinos in the largest industry in the United States, which is the agricultural industry. And it was because of my father who started the strike on September 8th in 1965. Started the actual labor movement. And because Larry had did that, he was able to sit on the legislative board to help create the first labor laws. And these labor laws were for farm workers, agricultural workers. But most people do not realize is there were no labor laws prior to that. And because of that, because of what Larry did and actually sat on the labor board, helped create today's labor laws. So every working person here in the United States has a debt of gratitude to my father and his work, and to the Manongs, to the Manong generation. And as a good friend of mine, Mark Polito, he said, I quote him, "We are standing on the shoulders of the Delano Manongs, of the Manongs," and which made our lives much better and easier, because the struggles that they went through the racism, through the prejudice, through the laws that were created to not let them advance in society, they overcame them all, and you know, to help us now. And you know, one of the things that my father did, and many of the Manong generation, they did not teach their children Tagalog or Ilocano or Pangasinan, because my father, did not want me to speak with a Filipino accent, and he wanted me to be able to assimilate into the society of the United States and to be more accepted. And by doing that, you know, it did rob me of my true heritage, and but that didn't stop me from learning some Tagalog. But it's been a fight for me for 26 years of my life, since I was 18, when I really started to push to get my father recognition. And that was 26 years of my life. And it wasn't until the day when I met, connected with Eliseo Art Silva, who is the artist who's painted all these wonderful murals throughout the United States. And by meeting with him and Marissa O'Roy, actually through the internet, here's some of Eliseo's murals. And he has been working for years as well, since he was 19, to get the history of the Filipinos out here in the United States. Also connecting with Marissa O'Roy, who is the filmmaker and director of the Delano Manongs. And then by doing that, I connected with Fonz, and there's a few people here who actually came to visit me at my work in Sherman Oaks. And there's two right here. Phil, Dorothy, Darlene, I'm sorry, Darlene. We've got a teacher or some educator, a guy named Ron Buenaventura, kind of a friend of mine now. who's now one of my best friends, and then we had Alan too, and Alan, no, you weren't there in that meeting, were you? But you came later.
I came later.
You came later. And Francine was there too, and there she is now, Francine.
That's because he gave us free food.
Yeah. So what, we got free food? Yeah, man.
Hendrix.
Hendrix. So, but, and then other people like Rose and Florante, who really helped. And there was a couple other people, Mark Polito and his wife. Of course, there's a couple other people in here, Faye Coons and Paz Velasquez. Well, there's been so many, but these people that I've mentioned have been with me since 2010 and have really pushed and really supported me and worked hard to get Larry's history out there. And really, without them, I probably couldn't have gotten as far as I have. And you know, you think about how far. Well, when I was 18, 19 years old, when really no one would listen, and just like, okay, whatever, and I would have to carry my pictures with me to show proof that my father was even a part of it, because everybody was led to believe that Cesar Chavez did this all on his own. He was the creator of the UFW and started everything that became the labor movement. But the true history is that it was Larry who did that. And of course, he was not by himself. There was Philip Veracruz, and most people know about Philip because he wrote a book. And then there was Pete Velasco, Andy Omaton, Ben Gines, and without, actually I have to look at my phone. Let me answer a text, no, I'm just kidding. I have notes on it. Let me face it. And of course I can't see. Let me grab my glasses. And my old man eyes. Okay, where'd it go? Okay, and it was Rudy Delfons and Dolores Grota who actually introduced Larry to AWOC to become a strike leader back in 1958. And so really that was the major event that happened in with my father with the UFW, was the recruiting of Larry to AWOC. And most people do not know, but AWOC was created by AFL-CIO. It was a AFL-CIO union that was created because the Teamster Union was now, at that time in 1958, were going out to the grape fields to make their union bigger. Well, of course, what the unions do, they compete against each other. And so AFL-CIO created AWOC to start to get union members in the fields. But of course, the union members there, they were white Americans. And how can white Americans speak to Filipinos who don't speak English very well, and even amongst themselves speak different languages? Well, in order to do that, they introduced Larry to AWOC, and immediately AWOC recruited him. And the reason why Larry was such a great and effective union leader and organizer was the fact that he spoke at least 9 different dialects of Filipino. He also spoke Portuguese, Spanish, 2 different dialects of Spanish. I remember watching him speak to indigenous Mexicans, Oaxacans, who didn't speak Spanish, but they speak Oaxacan. And he was able to communicate to them. I was amazed and how easy it was to learn a language. I saw my father, literally saw him learn Japanese because he went to Japan, and this was in the late 80s, later 80s, like 75. And I literally saw him learn Japanese. So he went to Japan too as well. And Larry also went to Brazil to help the the agricultural workers in Brazil to help them strike against the military-run government there. And but anyway, it was Larry who was able to bring everybody together, and he told stories about how back in the day, in the early days, the 30s and 40s, where he had to stand in between two different regions of Filipinos. And I have a recording of him, and he says, you know, I was never afraid. He wasn't afraid of anything. And if he gets beat up, then that's what happens. But he's gonna go there and try to bring his brothers together. And he stood between, you know, Baisans and Pangasinans and Ilocanos and so on and so forth. And he said it took 30 years to finally get them to get over that and stand up together. And my father, he was a great communicator. I was told in another event in San Diego by a person who actually knew him and worked a little bit with him, but he said that Larry never met a stranger, and that could be never more than true. He was a friend to everybody, and let me tell you, our house in Delano was always open to anybody who needed a place to stay. We had hundreds of people stay with us, and I remember always loving to have guests over. So, you know, it took a long time to get here, and it was Larry's 100th birthday, and it's been over. It's been 48 years since Delano Grape Strike, and in 2 years it'll be the 50th anniversary. And so with a group called Destination Delano, which I'm part of, we'll hold another event in Delano as well to gear up for the 50th anniversary. And if you look here on the wall, at this one right here, this is from the city of Los Angeles. And we were awarded September 8th, 1965. This is a resolution, so every year on September 8th is Larry Itliong Day in the county of Los Angeles. So, you know, that was a huge step forward because of this government now starting to recognize Larry's work. Because of this, and this, and these two right here. And even on Cesar Chavez Day, this was given to me, or to my dad and his family on Cesar Chavez Day, and which was just reinstated because Arnold Schwarzenegger took Cesar Chavez Day away. And Alan Alejo, this last year, this Assemblyman Alan Alejo, he got that reinstated, but the difference between the original Cesar Chavez Day and this year, or last year's Cesar Chavez Day, is that right here in the beginning, it says, it says, on the observance of Cesar Chavez Day, it is appropriate to pay tribute to the life of Larry Itliong, whose legacy lives in the improvement, working, and living conditions of countless California. So that right there, it is appropriate to honor Larry on Cesar Chavez Day. Because the truth of the matter is, who knows where Cesar would be without my father doing what he did. Because at that time, NFWA only had 300 members and only had, I think it was $74 in their treasury, in their bank. And they were not recognized as a real union. So that's the difference between AWOC and NFWA. AWOC again was created by AFL-CIO and was an accredited union. So these are very important things that people need to know. The other things that came out of the union that changed was the Unity Clap. The Unity Clap came from the Philippines. It came from the unions there, And it was to bring together, again, the different regions who didn't speak the same language, bring them together, get their blood flowing, get the excitement going. And the UFW adapted that. And so they adapted it to the Unity Clap. The other thing that the UFW adapted that came from the Filipinos was Welga. Welga is a Tagalog word, W-E-L-G-A. If you look in the history of the Spanish language, there is no word for union. Okay? And during that time, at the beginning of there it is, perfect timing, Welga. Okay? During that time, they had to create a word, H-U-E-G-L-A. Oh. It's my way. I know how that is. I'm speaking right now. In front of everybody. Love you.
Good timing.
You know, that's funny. Kids are yelling in the background. But again, getting back to the Spanish word Welga, that was an adaptation of Welga, W-E-L-G-A. And the other one of the other things that I always bring to point is that before UFW, Cesar Chavez had only 6 years of unionizing, and there are stories that people say that they taught Larry how to be a union organizer and leader. A lady named Dolores Rota, in her bio, her personal bio, it says that Cesar and her created the UFW. And I was just at an event just the other day for the Milpas Library. They made a mural, and put this down, and that's the mural right there. Okay, and she got up there and spoke. She was also a supporter of AB 123, but unfortunately, depending upon who she's standing in front of, she changes her story. And I kind of confronted her during this event through one other person. Actually, it was her mentor, and I spoke to him, and he was. What are you guys doing right there? He corrected her, and this is her mentor, the person who taught her how to be a union leader and organizer. And he actually corrected her because I had spoke to him, and he has the utmost respect for my father, and he knew my dad. And after the event, after she was speaking, and before she spoke, I'm sorry, kind of rambling on. Before she spoke, I got to speak, and what I said was, one of the first things is, the story that is out there about the UFW, the beginning of it, is wrong. It is wrong. I'm going to repeat myself. The story of the UFW is wrong. One more time, I said it 3 times during that event to make it clear, because we have all these politicians, all these people, representatives from the UFW, the sister of Caesar, the nephew of Caesar, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to make sure that they knew what I was there for, why I was there, who I am, and that I know the true history, and I have the proof of it. And I have been working all this time to get this history corrected. And the fact is, I don't want to bring Caesar down. This is just a ban on them. This is what they did. I'm just bringing out the history. I called Cesar Chavez Theo. I ran around and played with the kids. I sat on Helen's lap, his wife. And we were intertwined, the families, and so on and so forth. And even after my father left, he still helped the UFW. There was a time when, there was a little bit bad blood, but that cleared up. And he helped the UFW until the day he died. As a matter of fact, after he left, is when the Ani village was actually built. And there's, at least, I know one person here, actually two people here, that actually was there at the Outlining Village. And one of them was this young man sitting up here. Young man that was a long time ago. Florante was actually a volunteer to help build the Outlining Village. I never talked about it, I don't know why, but I also was there helping build Outlining Village. And I also remember playing at the site at Outlining Village as a kid. But also another good friend of ours, Mark Polito, was also there from UCLA. Were you at UCLA too at the time?
I was working at UCLA at the time.
Oh, you were working?
So
Yeah.
picture me and some other people in front of the sign.
Yeah.
That way.
And that
Just
was,
so you know what Agbayani Village is, because it wasn't really explained. The UFW, in recognition of those Manongs that were the beginning of the UFW, actually constructed a retirement village for them. I forget how many units. It was a small, it was like a courtyard.
it was 60.
60?
Yeah.
And so anyway, this was to honor them as far as all the work that they had gone into as far as beginning the union. So that's another legacy that, you know, is really unspoken. And so that was built really by the hands of students and union construction workers.
It was named after Paul Bayer.
Yeah, and it was named after Pablo Agbayani, who was one of the Manongs who died on the picket line in
Yeah.
front of, for the Grape Strike.
He was one of the first ones that died.
So that's the history of Agbayani Village. So it was built by students caravanning up to Delano and going to 40 acres and spending the night. It was cold bunkhouses and shacks, and then getting up in the morning early and starting working on the building. And there was union labor that came in as well, and they donated all their talent to build that.
Well, actually, I'm looking.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, all those Manongs have passed away. But there is a small room that's left that we put up on the side of the kitchen that has kind of a remembrance of them. Unfortunately, there was like a photo album, but as people have gone back to visit, they've kind of snatched their pictures. If they saw their pictures in the photo album, it's just kind of not a good thing.
Yeah,
But
there's one.
that's what happened. And then, unfortunately, there's also a poster there with all the names of people who helped. And I noticed that my name wasn't there, but people know I was there. So one of these days it'll probably get added.
I actually almost wrote it in when I was there.
So yeah.
I actually literally almost did because,
You have a picture.
you know, I actually have an original picture too. I have a
Yeah.
picture in my computer someplace of the, right after it was built. And as you can see that some of the,
That's the building.
you can see now, this is the building.
Yeah.
And the picture before was just these tall trees, but completely nothing. It was flat ground with nothing on it. I'll see if I can find it and show you guys. But well, now I'd like to play the trailer to the Delano One office. Do we have time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So let me get that
This
set
is a
up.
film that's upcoming, done by Melissa Arroyo. And Arroyo. Arroyo. She's a filmmaker also. It's being set up to be a PBS documentary, if you're familiar with PBS documentaries. And it should be coming out sometime this year because she's in final editing as far as we know. She was a Bay Area filmmaker. She's also done an award-winning documentary on the Sikhs. So here's the trailer from that.
Delano, California is as close as you can get to the Wild West, except the cowboys are Mexicans and Filipinos. Perhaps that is why this was the location of one of the greatest showdowns in labor history, the Great Grape Strike of 1965, the event that created the United Farm Workers Union and made Cesar Chavez a household name. But this isn't his story. This is the story of Larry Itliong and a small group of Filipinos who in their twilight years took a last stand against the system that held them down for most of their lives.
Dahil sa'yo ako'y lumigaw.
When Filipinos started to immigrate to the U.S., farm work was one of the few jobs they were allowed to take, but it wasn't easy. Farm workers could be out in 110-degree sun, bent over with a knife, cutting asparagus stalks for hours. With dust from the fields covering their bodies and chemicals sprayed while they're working, it was the minimal of requests to have a grower provide a decent wage and a few basic essentials.
The farmers did not provide portables, restroom. They didn't provide water. Breaks, they gave you a break, but it was quick.
Those empowered growers, they could not even name their workers their names. They called them boy, old men already, boy yet.
Filipinos began labor unions early on. They organized strikes and walkouts in farm fields and canneries all over the West Coast in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. According to historians, Filipinos had the most effectively organized farm labor unions.
The thing about the Filipino workers is that they were very united. And even though many of them came from different parts, sometimes they didn't even understand the same language, but they stuck together. And that was just, I think something to their credit that really was an example for other workers.
It was the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee with its Filipino members and Larry Itliong as its head organizer that started the Delano Grape Strike.
September 8, 1965. That is when about 1,500 Filipinos went on strike against the grape growers in Delano.
People think that, wow, United Farm Workers, Chicanos started this movement, but actually it was the Filipinos that dragged the Mexicans into the labor movement.
When the Filipinos went out on strike, that was on the 8th of September, and Larry and Pete and the group said, we need Cesar Chavez's group to join us.
And if you don't involve all the others to be with you, you're sunk, you fail. Because those nationalities that are not involved become your scabs and they break your strike.
Meanwhile, the National Farm Workers Association with Cesar Chavez was slowly building up their union. A labor strike was not on the NFWA's radar.
Larry was already a union. They were already an organizing committee. They were doing only one thing, is this organize workers for better pay and wages and contracts and so forth. They were already thinking like a union. Although we thought like a union, but we weren't saying we're organizing workers, not yet,
Filipinos got on strike. Big problem. The Mexicans are going to become the strike breakers. So Itliong then goes up to Chavez and says, look, we need your support. And Chavez says, no, I can't give you my support. Itliong says, why not? So Chavez says, I'm not ready. Well, wait 2 or 3 more years. And Itliong says, no.
Chavez goes to his group for a vote: continue to work as usual or join the Filipinos in an increasingly violent walkout.
When we had our meeting, the National Farming Association meeting, we didn't really know whether they were it's going to be just a work stoppage or it's going to be a real bona fide strike. So we decided we would wait to see what was going to happen. So, and also we had no money, we had like $70 in the bank. That was all our treasury. But then the violence against the Filipino workers, there was so much violence. I mean, some of them were beaten up.
A week later, the Chicanos joined the Filipinos in protest. and the two groups became the United Farm Workers Union, with Cesar Chavez as the director and Larry Itliong as assistant director. This unprecedented unity between different groups of ethnic workers started to fracture. Yet again, Filipinos began to feel marginalized as meetings were conducted in Spanish. Work crews that had functioned like families were broken up by new UFW hiring rules. And Filipino leaders felt powerless under Chavez's rule. Why don't we know about the Filipino strikers? Why are their contributions not heralded in the history books or passed down from generation to generation? And why hasn't anybody heard of Larry Itliong, the UFW's second in command during the most powerful era in farm labor organizing?
So there it is.
Lights, please. Lights.
So there it is. This is the trailer to the documentary, and hopefully the documentary will be done by this year. I was telling Ron, he was asking me when the documentary would be over or out to the public. Unfortunately, last year, or when the hurricane happened on the East Coast, was the deadline for it to be done. And because of that, it was not able to be finished. So hopefully it'll be done soon. Because this is really important, because we need to get that out there to help get the truth out. So, but thank you very much.
And later on at the close we'll have cake, so stick around. Now the main event, or what this whole thing was all started with the thoughts of this event. I'd like to bring up some people to take a seat. Actually, we don't have enough seats. So anyway, please come up, and you might have to bring your own chair. I'd like to invite the Malignant family to come up, family members. Just sit up here in the town. And then also, Tawa, you can stay there. Vincent Reyes, please come up. Bob San Jose, please. Laura Lee Elias. My Uncle Marcy was supposed to be here, but I don't see him. Yeah.
Here's some more chairs.
So this is folks that are in our book. There are some other people here that are also in the book, but came on their own. Didn't have rooms for, couldn't figure out how to arrange it all. So what we'll be doing now is basically talk stories. So it's like, you know, when you're sitting around at home with the family, or you're after Thanksgiving, people kind of talk stories about how it was back in the day, how it was, or why their kids were naughty or whatever. So we'd like to just bring that up. I wanted to start off with the Malignant family. Earlier, if you were here, there was, oh, let me finish with this little one. It's not showing up on my screen, it's showing up right here. Never mind, I'm trying to figure out what's going on there. I'm gonna start. So anyway, what we wanted to do is basically just have them talk a little bit about themselves. The Malignant family, there's a couple albums up there. Show me your album, June. They brought their own artifacts as well to display.
Actually, it's the same one.
It's the same one?
Except this is in its original form.
So this is the original. So I'll let them go ahead and talk a little bit about themselves.
Well, I don't know if everybody here knows who the Rockefellers were. But we were the first Filipino group in America, before the Osmonds and before the Jacksons. We were already on TV. But since we were green and we didn't know the business, of course, our manager got all the, the money and didn't work for us really. And then we had a hit record. It was a number 16 in the Billboard, number 1 in LA, and number 1 in New York. And that really made us. We were not really a group that if you hear us, you like us. What we were really was, we were a visual group, meaning when we performed, we just didn't stand there and sing. We performed. And we opened for a lot of big name acts. We were in demand in those days. However, we lost all that. Even the American artists lost all their standings because of what? Does anybody know? The British invasion. The Beatles came into the scene. And then all the other British groups. And we were left behind. And this is why we never. But we have a write-up. This is surprising to me because we didn't have a write-up here in America, but we have a very good write-up of all places in England, where somebody really liked the group because we were kind of the first group that had a Latin feel to all of our songs. And that's what really made our songs. Neil Diamond wrote 2 songs for us. And, the Filipinos are really very talented people. Not only in entertainment, like we had Cherish, Arnel, and now we have Bruno Mars. He's a Hawaiian Filipino. And of course, the world-known Filipino is who? Pacquiao. And of course, he's a well-known Filipino, all over the place. So, and my 2 sisters, we worked in Vegas for 2 years. My youngest sister is not here, but she's the only one in all the history of the magazine that they put out in Vegas weekly. My youngest sister was picked. She was 2 years old, and she was taking a bow. But they performed with us once in a while. We would call them. And my youngest sister, which is Edie. By the way, that name Edie is because we worked with Steve and Edie. I don't know if you know who they are. And Edie asked my parents my mother was pregnant at the time, if it was a girl, could rename her after her name. And we said, sure, and that's how we got Edie. And one night she would come on stage and she would be crying and wiping her eyes. And people love it. But like I said, the group, and I'm really blessed to be with this family. We're a big family. There's 12 of us. And my sisters, they don't sing that well, but they dance really good. They can dance, so we bring them up to dance. And this is how.
Yeah, the boys got all the talent. We got all the looks.
And I don't know if you see that next to our album, there's an album of the Society of Seven. They're all Filipinos, by the way. And my brother is one of them also. He joined that group, and he was with them for 15 years. And of course, my brother worked with Lonnie in Vegas. And somebody just told me I'm a living legend, so. The history of how we got, okay. Do you want to know the history of how we got? Okay, the group really never started in the Philippines. You know, in the old days, when I was a teenager, every corner of a street, I don't know if you remember those days, or some of you, we would sing and play music. We don't fool around, like go and, like the kids do today. I mean, not everybody, not all the kids, but in those days, that's what we did. My parents were married in Shanghai, China, and they had to move back home when they had the Japanese-Chinese War. And then they went back, and that is when I was born in the Philippines, but like I said, what we did on every corner of the street, you would see groups singing, because we're naturally, I don't know why, but within us or inside us, we love music and we love to sing, right? I can tell you that because currently I am the president of the Friendship Club here in Carson, which is a Filipino group. And we dance it once a month, and we go to casino once a month. But anyway, and that's how my brothers and I started singing on the corner. Then we went to Hong Kong, and my father was there, we joined him. And we happened to be singing in a party. So we got up and sang a few songs, and there was one club owner in there, and he heard us, and he asked my father. My father was well known, by the way, in Shanghai, China, and also in Hong Kong. And he asked my father if we can pay for him as a show. And my father didn't know we could sing, and so he said, no, I don't think, but it's a good thing, I overheard it. And I said, Dad, let's try it. And we did try it, and here we are in America. A lot of people, when they came here, not only a few, but 100, as Dinah Shore would tell that to us, she was the one who brought us to America. And then we got to meet some congressman, and he asked us, do you want to stay in America? And we said, sure, why not? This is the land of opportunity. And here we are. And we made history. Thank you. You guys are shy? Oh, come on, we get together and you're always...
We're here to support you.
I know you can't support me. Who's next, Peter? I guess that's about it. Nothing else to tell them, really.
Yeah, the girls are very modest, because when I remember seeing them perform, the girls were like the go-go dancers on the side, and the family was very large. 10? 12. So, there's a lot of girls, and then the boys playing in the band. So that's what I remember back from the day. And now, actually, I neglected to include what you're seeing are photos from the book, which is available through Amazon.com or through the Necklace Philippine Expressions Bookshop. And yeah, there's a mistake on my part. Yeah, there are a few mistakes in the book. I want to also bring up my partner in life, Rose. We're going to talk about our student movement days. And you're up.
It's okay. I'll sit like everybody else. The period that Florante and I basically got involved with the Filipino community, or even understanding our history, was not until we got to college. So many of you young people here are fortunate enough to know about our Filipino American history at a younger age. But can you imagine us going through elementary school, junior high, high school, don't even know who were the first Filipinos that came over. We only heard about Magellan, right? That was it. That was our Philippine history, or Filipino American history. So college gave us that opportunity. And it was in the 1970s that many young Filipinos had the opportunity to even go to higher education. College wasn't even on our agenda until we heard about it through other groups, other older siblings, other mentors who said, hey, you need to also think about your future. You know, we didn't have a counselor. In fact, my counselor, we didn't have a counselor like Ron Buenaventura. We had a counselor who was primarily a male, white counselor, older, and he questioned why I wanted to go to college. He said, why do you want to go to college? Isn't that normally what we do? I didn't say that, but you know, why even question me? You know, you should be talking about the schools that are out there. So I didn't know about the colleges through school. I learned it from my older sister. So, and then that's when I heard about all these classes that were also being offered at San Diego State. And there was no Filipino American history classes. We were under Chicano studies. There was no Filipino. So it wasn't until we got involved in the 70s that many students who were in college also got involved with the Filipino People's Far West Convention. So this was an annual convention that gathered a lot of people from all the way from Seattle down to San Diego. So that's why it was called the Far West Convention. It wasn't the national, you know, can you imagine if it was a national organization? It was more West Coast. And out of that convention, there was a student network that was formed, the Filipino West Coast Confederation of Filipino Students. So it was before SIPASA, which is now going on with the students today. And many of the schools were represented by all the way from University of Washington to San Francisco, San Francisco State, San Jose State, UC Berkeley, all those campuses up in the Bay Area to Sacramento, then Los Angeles, and then San Diego. And we also had our own convention. And in that convention, we used issues of making sure we had equity and you know, had access to higher education, promoting ethnic studies, not just Filipino studies. We had to try to keep these ethnic studies that were still there or just started. There was also budget cuts that were going on, trying to do away with professors that were also you know, doing or promoting ethnic studies. And then there was also the issue of the Philippines. This was also a very controversial period. Martial law also occurred, and some students were even blacklisted, even though they were Filipino Americans. They weren't Filipino nationals. They were blacklisted like Florante.
Number 52 on the list.
And then another thing that we established were Filipino clubs. There were no Filipino groups that were existing. So Florante was one of the founders of UCLA Samahan. Can you imagine? There were only like maybe 10 or 20 students going on. Now there's over 1,000 maybe going to UCLA, Filipino students. And then we also formed a club at UC Irvine, Kababayan. So we'll be celebrating our 40th anniversary soon. Next year? Yeah. So 40 years has gone by. But that's the period that we wanted to express in our book, because we grew up at the time that we had opportunities to open up our eyes and to learn more about our history and our culture. Oh, I kept show some pictures. So this is our first convention at Fresno State. So there was a lot of students there. And then I want to combine these two pictures. Hold that. There's friendship games that were going on, but we also did a similar thing which we called friendship first, competition last. So we actually did a volleyball tournament across the West Coast, or mainly Southern California, Los Angeles and LA. We made sure that we played volleyball mainly for fun and not so much of this competition.
Some of them really wanted to compete.
Yeah. And we actually had Philip Veracruz, who attended at that time and spoke about the role of Filipino farm workers. And then the national, Philippine National Day. The reason why we said it was Philippine National Day because July 4th, we didn't think there was independence in the Philippines at the time. So we created a Philippine National Day to recognize the history in the Philippines.
Rosa's Tumana, she was actually one of the steering committee for the West Coast Confed and helped lead student organizations across the West Coast. So now I'd like to turn over the mic to folks sitting in the front. Dave, if you want to introduce your mom.
Hello, my name is Dave Desposito. I'm speaking for my mom, Clara Desposito. And a lot of these pictures you see up here are from her collection. So, yeah. As we're standing here right now, I'm thinking about, I grew up in Carson. I've never been to the Philippines. I don't speak Tagalog. My mom has never been to the Philippines. She doesn't speak Tagalog. My dad was born in Hawaii and came across here. So, like my friends at the office say, I'm the whitest Filipino they know. Comes up, damn, you're the whitest Filipino we know. Anyway, where we're standing right now, when we grew up, was Torrance. This is Torrance. It wasn't even the city of Carson. Didn't become the city of Carson until 1968. And where we are standing right now was also a site of a junkyard. All Carson was junkyards and farms. Junkyards and farms. Yeah, all as far as the eye can see. And as a matter of fact, I grew up on a farm with Mariano Dow's. Do you want to stand up? This is Mariano Dow's. His father owned the farm that we lived on. So we lived on the farm over on 220th Street. And we didn't have cell phones, or we didn't have the internet, or we didn't have all these Xbox games. We had to make up games out in the field, throwing sticks and rocks and things like that. We used to joke with our kids during Christmas time, because we spoiled our kids, because we didn't get a lot of stuff. So we spoiled our kids, and we used to tell them, oh yeah, when Uncle Dave was a kid, what I got for Christmas was a brand new rock and a stick. So you guys should be lucky. But growing up here, there was a lot of Filipinos growing up here. And we didn't really, it was such a melting pot that we didn't really distinguish between the Filipinos and Samoans and the Mexicans. And it was a really, but there were so few Filipinos here that we, despite the fact that we all didn't know each other, we still knew of each other. For example, I went to Carnegie Junior High School, which is right down the street over here. They're talking to the Malignants who went to Stephen White. And we didn't know each other then, but I'll tell you, every boy in Carnegie, every Filipino boy in Carnegie knew who the Malignant sisters were. I swear. Because we knew who they were. Because I went with Jojo, La Pastora, and all those guys, so Mike Guevara. But they used to have a dance troupe, a Filipino dance troupe called the Young Maharlikas. And that's how we met a lot of the young Filipinos from other schools. But it was different. We weren't traditionally raised, at least my family wasn't traditionally raised in the Filipino way. So we didn't really, we didn't speak Tagalog. We ate the foods, we knew the cuss words. we knew the cuss words, but we didn't really, grow up in the traditional way where we were calling each other manong or tita. Everybody was more uncle and auntie, And that's how I explaining to my son. He's like, hey, everybody's your uncle and auntie here. I said, yeah, but what the difference is that in the islands, as a show, we don't say Mr. and Mrs. We don't say this is Mr. Malignant or Miss Elias. we say it's uncle or auntie. So I had to explain to him that everybody's an uncle or an auntie as a sign of respect. So if you want to, switch it, you could say, okay, if you're in America, you'll say Mr. or Mrs. But if you're from the Philippines, you're an uncle or an auntie. Or what else is Manong or Hawaii. Right. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun growing up here on the farm. I remember a lot of things that we did as kids that the kids today will not get to do, which makes me kind of sad. Because I remember growing up on the farm, and then they'd have a big celebration, and everybody's playing their guitars, and you watch the Monongs, take a goat over to the corner, and they're like, I'm a little kid, right? I'm a little kid. They're like, come here, come here, come and watch this. Takes the goat, slits it neck and throats ear to ear. We're freaking out. Little kids, they're all laughing. Another thing we used to do when we were kids is, and this is one thing that makes me sad that you kids today don't get to do, is that my uncles and aunts, we used to get together and go fishing. Half of us would go fishing. We'd go to like a state beach. There'd be like 20, 30, 40 of us. Half of us would go fishing, half of us would go clamming. Then at the end of the day, they'd come back, make a fire, cook rice and vegetables, and cook all that fish and clams that we just caught, and eat it there while they're singing songs and having a good time. Don't get to do that anymore. You don't, now it's so rushed, so fast-paced, everything's on the go. I read a study recently that said that the highest job demand in the future for teenagers, young kids, are going to be customer service. Because the generation growing up do not know how to interact with each other face-to-face. So jobs like bank tellers and librarians and things of those natures, where you have to deal with the public face-to-face, is going to be very, very hard to fill. When we were talking about famous Filipinos, I also wanted to mention another famous Filipino from here in Carson. He's not well known as far as name goes, but if you're in the industry, you know his name, and I'm sure Rocky knows, Rex Ellis. You remember Rex Ellis? No, he went to Carson High, he went to Carnegie, married to Michael Jackson's niece, produced Janet Jackson's albums, produced Janet Jackson's tour.
Is he our age?
Yeah, he's 1 year, you're class of 79, right? Yeah, he was class of 80. He was with Wilson, LaBassin, and all those guys, yeah. So he's been on tour with Janet Jackson, and he's also produced Vanessa Williams albums under the name Racer X Productions. So it's another famous Filipino out there. I was just here to talk about growing up in Carson and how much fun I had and how much simpler the time was, and how, although we were Filipino, we really didn't differentiate between the Filipinos, the Mexicans, Samoans, the blacks, the whites. We were just kids. Yeah, but there were so many of us that it was hard to discriminate against. Probably we weren't alienated like in other cities you might be where there's a smaller community of Filipinos. But those were the days, back in the days when we used to have house parties and open up the garage. Remember? Sunray Manor? There's a party in Sunray Manor. And the big Filipino thing back then is Filipinos love to dance. So the cha-cha. Remember when they play the cha-cha, you just see the whole dance floor, like the whole dance floor is just going back and forth, back and forth. It was kind of like a movie. It was really funny, but those were
First line dancing.
that's exactly right. That was the first line dance. Yeah. But we used to. I don't know how we kept in contact with each other like we used to, because we didn't have some cell phones. This is when you actually had to put something in the mail to get to some place. You didn't say, okay, attach it to an email or fax it to me. It's send me the documents. I'll get them in a couple of weeks. I'll look at them. I'll sign them. I'll send them to you, and then we'll be done in about a month and a half. but not anymore. Everything's, like we say at our office, instant gratification isn't fast enough for these kids. It's not fast enough. Anyway, that's an idea of some of the simpler times of Carson and how we were growing up and playing, and that's it. Anybody have any questions?
What were you farming here?
We were farming corn, we were farming, what else were we farming?
Collard greens, mustard greens, turnip tops, Texas greens,
Eggplant, ampalaya.
Eggplant, ampalaya, strawberries. But the one I remember the most was corn, because corn grew during the summertime, and as kids we got to work on the corn farm cutting corn, and the kids didn't get paid because we were helping towards the rent. But what Junior's dad used to do was he used to take us to the pike as a payment. So all of us kids would go to the pike, which was, the pike is an amusement park which is located used to be located in Long Beach. Right, there used to be a huge naval shipyard in Long Beach, 20,000 soldiers there. So the pike was a happening, like the fair, the LA County Fair, but going on all the time. But that was back in the day when you can drop your kids off. I was like 6, 7, 8. There's like 6 of us, and the oldest one maybe being 12 or 13. Oh, okay, here's some money. We'll be back at 10 o'clock to pick you up. You could do that. All these sailors walking around, tattoo parlors. We're just here going on rides and having a good old time. And another part of our payment from Junior's dad for working on the farm was they would take us to Carson Park Pool. That was a real, treat, because that was the only pool in the city of Carson as far as we knew, public or private. Other than that, we were swimming in the canal.
Okay, the kind of games we used to play, we used to know how they were in the land, shovels. So we used to dig a hole, okay, and it would bury somebody about this much in the ground. And all the kids would go around the guy and start tickling him all over it. And he wouldn't sit until he started crying, And then we'd just leave him there and come back an hour later. And then we used to also with the shovels, we would dig, believe it or not, little tunnels in the ground. Actually, tunnels going in underneath the ground. And think about it, man.
Don't get us wrong. Kids were mean back then. We were just a different kind of mean. We didn't bully people. Go ahead. Say it here.
Tell them about the time you and my other son, John, used to put firecrackers in the Ola Frog's mouth.
Yeah, we would go to the next farm, and it'd be like wild frogs, So we get the frogs, and big tall frogs, and I used to go to Tijuana a lot. And, bring back firecrackers, M80s. And we were about maybe 8, 9 years old, And we would get these frogs, and we put firecrackers in them off and light them up.
Him and my brother, not me. Not me.
And it was fun because we were kids.
Tell them about our BB gun fights.
We used to have BB gun fights.
When we were kids, BB gun fights, it wasn't like, you shoot the can next to him or shoot the bottle. No, we were chasing each other in the field, shooting each other with BB guns.
We used to get shot.
On the farm.
Yeah, one of my friends got shot here in the chest, had to go to the hospital. Another friend got shot right here behind the ear. BB went inside him, But the games we had was fun.
The key of us playing was that we had to use our imagination.
Yeah.
We didn't have guns, or Nerf guns, we had balls. There wasn't basketballs and volleyballs and footballs around. We were throwing dirt clods in the fields. That's what we were doing.
Yeah, we'd have rock fights.
Rock fights.
It's different, I don't know.
Growing up here, when we were growing up, there was no drainage, so when it rained hard, oh man, people were swimming in the streets.
The water would come up to here, and then they were building houses at the time. We get the 10 by 2s. Yeah, logwood, and we would be like, it would be like a raft. It was fun. We would have like mud fights, you know, different fun. I don't know. It was like you said, imagination.
How many acres did your father have?
I don't know, but he planted a lot.
He had 6 acres and he bought it for $300. All the Filipinos laughed at him. You're throwing your money away.
Yeah, it was a time when my father, when I was born, he was like 52 years old. I'm 55 right now. Okay.
They didn't have cable back in those days, so parents didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah, so he came from the Philippines, Alejandro Tagodin, Alocosor, Norte. And he was about 20 years old. He came here and worked in the farms. And back in the 30s, it was around the Depression time, and the war broke out. And most of the land was owned by Japanese. So what happened with the Japanese? They lost their land. They went to concentration camp. So the state was selling the farms real cheap. And the Filipinos, a lot of them bought them, like almost nothing. And that's why Carson had a lot of Filipino farmers back in the 40s, 50s.
I didn't realize that. So it's because because of World War II, the Japanese farmers lost their
They lost the land, yeah.
And that's why the Filipino farmers.
Yeah, they got it for like almost nothing. You know, and that's why they say, oh, the land of opportunities in the United States, because of the second. I guess my dad was the second flow of the Philippines coming over here. And then back in the 70s, I guess after the martial law in the Philippines, Filipinos were just coming, a whole bunch of them. But it's a different, time now, different kind of games. That's why I'm really watching my kids all the time. I have kids. I got like 6 kids. And when they're growing up, I'm always watching them around, so I know what they can get into. I just overprotected them because me, one of my best friends, Dave's brother, we were like 11, 12 years old, going to the pike, riding on bicycles to the pike, Redondo Beach, and our mothers never knew where we were. Crazy.
Yeah, Junior's a good family friend. He, good friend of my brother, who my brother passed away, but my brother used to start all the fights and then let Junior fight them for him. So, back in the day. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. And just to let you know that I met Tawa because of one of the other authors of the Arcadia books. We have a display there of the different books done by Arcadia Press on Filipinos in different locations. So those are not for sale. They're my private collection. I use them for teaching class. So please don't take them by mistake. Also, Tawa, Dave's mom, was actually probably one of the first Filipinos in a movie back in the day too. Because how many of you saw Back to Bataan with John Wayne? Okay, Tawa is in that movie as one of the extras. She was one of the girls in the school scene. She was 17 years old when she was in it, and that's a whole other story. But you can read it in the book. There's a little story about how that happened. Now I'd like to give the mic over to my good friend, Val Vincent Reyes. He's a veteran.
Thanks. Good evening, folks. It's just a pleasure to be here on behalf of Florante and Rose's book. And I really believe in the book because what he does is he documents the fact that we have a post-World War II migration of World War II veterans that migrated to the South Bay area, the Torrance, Gardena, Wilmington, Harbor City, Carson area. And Peter, I call him Peter because he's family to me, but Florante's father actually was a post-World War II Navy veteran. Is that correct, Florante? And he ended up working at the big aerospace industry here, McDonnell Douglas. So my father was part of that post-World War II generation of veterans who served in the United States Armed Forces in the Philippines. And my father was a prisoner of war in World War II, and he was taken at 18 captive in the Bataan Death March, that all of you are familiar with. So all the post-World War II Filipinos then migrated to the mainland United States, and my father was one of them. And as a result, he got his post-9/11 GI Bill and got his college education. And then he became an architect. And so he was one of the first architects that worked for the Department of Public Works in Guam, where I was born. And then he migrated to Gardena, where we were one of the first 3 Filipino families. I think it was the Madiangs, the Papacos, the Reyeses, and one other family, I'm not sure. But in those days, in the late 50s and early 60s, the Filipinos were very much into mutual support. So we knew each other, and we know each other because we go to church, right? And then, so we'd meet at church, and then also they put their kids in Catholic schools because the Catholic faith is a very important value for the young Filipino families here in growing up in the United States. So one of the values that my father taught me was, well, you help your community and you help your country, because Dad was a veteran himself. Growing up in Gardena was very interesting because we grew up basically in a Japanese American neighborhood, and it was important to see my father kind of blend in because our neighbors were Japanese Americans, and he was taken prisoner of war by the Japanese. So it was really kind of a blessing to watch my father morph into a very compassionate person because of his experience being imprisoned at 18 years old and having to be tortured by the Japanese referral forces. And he was a good neighbor to everyone, you know, including his friends who are Japanese Americans, who also, by the way, were imprisoned and put in the relocation camps in World War II. So many of our neighbors had lost their properties because of the relocation. So we all had this kind of connection and living together with the Japanese Americans, the Mexican Americans in the Gardena neighborhood. So it was a very, very good melting pot in which young Filipinos and myself were able to kind of learn to get along with other people. And one thing that was important besides getting a good education was exposing, the Filipino families wanted to expose their children to the arts, the creative arts, the language arts, the music. So Florante then was one of my mother's top students, and actually he was always the last to play in the piano recitals because he was the best piano player, right? And so my mother would always schedule him because she was the piano teacher in the neighborhood, and she would drive out in her Plymouth Fury to all the Filipino families to teach their kids piano lessons on Saturdays, right? And so so Peter was her best student, and he was really, really the best. So he's really talented, but he's really humble about it. So my father again was very active in the community, and because he was a professional, there was a whole group of Filipino professionals that actually went to USC, like the Madiangs. He was a USC graduate. There's lots of families whose Filipino fathers were graduates of USC. They connected and they built one of the first mutual aid support groups, and that was called the Filipino Technical and Professional Society. It was started here in the South Bay, and it consisted of Filipino doctors, Filipino engineers, Filipino architects, Filipino technicians, and they got together on a regular basis to kind of promote, mutual support. And one of the outgrowths was the fact that they put together scholarships for needy Filipino students. And so we're pretty proud of that because as we're growing up, we kind of coincided with the Student Affirmative Action program. So I myself benefited from the Student Affirmative Action program, and I was involved in where I went to school, the California State University Dominguez Hills. They had their first Student Affirmative Action program, And so I work with other Latino students to bring in more ethnic students into the California state system because it benefited me, so I wanted to kind of pay it forward. And it's interesting because Rose mentioned that she was one of the leaders of that Filipino Far West Convention along with Florante, but I got our Student Affirmative Action people to attend those Filipino Far West conventions. We had one in Sacramento and stuff like that. And it was really interesting because we had Filipino students from San Diego State and a lot of the state universities show up at these conferences. So it was a big deal because it made us feel empowered and more aware of the power that we have through unity and action. And so growing up, I remember what my dad said, and so I ended up getting commissioned in the Army because my career as a social worker was kind of influenced by one of the men that Peter depicts in his book, and that's Arroyo Morales. He was like the dean, we call him Uncle Roy, because he's the dean of Filipino social service. What he did was he organized classes to educate people from all ethnicities about the power of the Filipino culture. And so I think the class is still going on today. I think Peter teaches a class at Loyola Marymount, right? And there's another guy.
Alan's the teacher.
Mhm.
CSUN. And Carol from Fullerton, teaching Filipino American history.
So there's a lot of Filipinos in education, and I myself, before I resigned, was a clinical assistant professor at USC at the School of Social Work, where I started the military social work program along with another person because my specialty is post-traumatic stress disorder. I counsel soldiers with PTSD, and 6 months after the 9/11, then they sent the first team of mental health Army social workers, and I was one of the 3 Filipino officers in the entire country of Afghanistan on the first wave of mental health guys out there. So I kind of thank my father, and his post-World War II generation of Filipino veterans for kind of the strength and unity and the contributions that we have as a Filipino culture here in the South Bay area. So thank you, Peter and Florante, for putting this great book together.
Yes, I play the piano. Now I play church organ. And now, wanted to bring in take it to Mr. Bob San Jose.
Thank you, Florante. Good afternoon, those of you that are left. It's been a long day, I understand that. I was asked, I think, to come because I am part of the history of the Filipinos, whether I wanted to be or not. How many of you know that there's a Filipino Community Center in Wilmington? There's a building standing. That building was built in 1949 by the Filipinos in the South Bay. My father was president of the Filipino community in Long Beach. They got together with San Pedro and they built that center. At that time, that was the largest Filipino community in the United States owned by Filipinos. Mostly up in north where there's much more Filipinos. People actually rented halls to use their dances. We used dances down there, and every Saturday, that's how people made contact. They didn't have the cell phones, you're correct. They used to communicate by almost every week. They would allow the people to gather and do the dances. I was very lucky. I became in 1975 president of the Filipino community. I was the first American-born, mestizo, and youngest president of that community. In the 75, and during that time for like 5 years or so, one of the things that we did do and I'm sorry that June had left, was when the Malignments wanted to come here, we were instrumental in putting them in with the congressmen and getting the Malignments here, known as the Rockefellers at that time. So it was kind of interesting to see them and their talent and to be able to know them. But among the other things that I guess I'm in several of the books or my life history is that our community center at that time I kind of chuckle at all these different clubs that we started, and we've got 40 years here and we got 39 years here. We had a teen and 20 club back in 1949. Teen and 20. That was made up of Filipino young teenagers and one 20-year-old girl who wanted to be in the club, but we couldn't call it a teenage club. So it's a teen 20. That girl happened to be my wife's sister. We met doing culture dances at that time, and my wife, Janet, we celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary this year. So when you're talking about clubs that started, our teenage club started much, much earlier. Now, through my life, I volunteered to be president, manager of the community center, and got into the cultures of it. It was kind of unusual because I'm actually a mestizo. My mother is half Irish, quarter American Indian, and French. My father's from Cebu. But I grew into the Filipino culture actually coming from really a white culture. I grew up, went to school in Long Beach, then I came to Banning, and actually worked and lived in Wilmington in this area much before there was a Carson or a Stephen White or the Carson organized area. So we became very organized in Carson with many of the Filipinos here. Part of the things that I've done in the Filipino name, I've been very first in with the USGA in the golf deal. I was a rules official for 33 years. I now live in Seal Beach. I have one son that's 50, and some of the things that he does, some of the things I've heard today from some of the young people, and from Dave not talking about rocks and sticks. In my day, we didn't even have rocks and sticks. That's how long ago that was. But I'm very proud. Hello. Battery's dead and so am I. I want to thank you very much. I'm very proud of the young people and what they're doing to preserve the culture of the Filipinos. Please continue that. Thank you very much for coming.
Well, I'm the last speaker, and my name is Laurel Leolaes, and I am a teacher. But 20 years ago, I ran for city council in the city of Carson. So Carroll Dell kids, I want you to know that I went to Delamo Elementary.
Delamo Dolphins.
Delamo Dolphins. I went to Carnegie Middle School.
Carnegie
Highlanders. Highlanders. And then I went to Carson High School.
Boom!
I don't even need this.
Bandit
Sorry,
pilots.
I don't even need this. But I came here just to talk to you guys. I was born in San Pedro. I was not born in the Philippines, okay? And when I grew up, my mom and dad, just like Mr. Itliong, they decided that I would not speak any Tagalog because they did not want me to have an accent. They did not want me to be discriminated against. My mom and dad came here because my dad joined the Navy instead of going to law school in the Philippines. Because at that time, economically, it was better to join the United States Navy than to become a lawyer over there. Okay. When my dad told me stories about when he grew up, I remember one in particular. He got on a bus when he was on leave, and he was in the deep south, and he was on the bus, and they told him, "You're on leave, go and enjoy yourself." He got off the bus, and they couldn't decide if he was white, and he had to go on one side, or if he was black, and he had to go the other. So he had to stay on the bus. That's my dad's story. After 20 years in the United States Navy, he had to decide what he was going to do, so then he ended up working at UNOCAL, the oil refinery down the way. Okay? And what I'm here to tell you is, my mom and dad were single-minded. My dad did not have a college education, but his father dreamed for him to get one. He went to 1 year of college in the Philippines, and his whole goal was to get our family here so that me and my sisters and brothers could go to college. They chose one, UCLA, that was it. We didn't talk about anything else, okay? They told us, you don't do anything but study because we have no money, and if you don't get a scholarship, you're not going. So we studied, and we did what we needed to do. Then when I went to UCLA, that's where I learned a little bit, not a lot, because my family, I commuted from Carson all the way up there to UCLA for 5 years, because I took the 5-year plan. Okay. No, and I'll be honest, I did pretty good, but the 5th year was fun because the first 4 years I had to study or else I would, have a problem. And then I decided my last year I would have fun. But this is what I want to tell you. When I ran for City Hall Council, I want you to know that it wasn't that important that I went to UCLA. It wasn't that important that, what was important was that my mom and dad had done so much work in the community quietly, okay, that they had a lot of friends and family who were helping them. And the other thing that was really important is that I was the first person ever in City Hall, okay, to graduate from Carson High School. Everybody else had come from someplace else. Okay, so for you guys who are in Carrolldale, I want you to know that you're going to have your own life experience, okay, but God has put you here for a purpose, okay, and you never know where you're going to go. 20 years ago, if you knew me when I was at Carnegie, you would never have guessed that I could get people to vote for me, and I would have sat on in the city hall. I can't even believe it. I was there for 6 years, and in that time, that's where I realized what Filipino is. Filipino is not the language. Filipino is not, like what you eat. Okay, for me, the only reason why I can stand here and tell you I'm Filipino is because my mom and dad taught me the traditional values. Work hard, love your family, take care of the community, go to the fiestas, get to know everybody, have that generosity of spirit, okay, and look at other people and be friends with them. Carson had 25% of every culture when I was there. Okay, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, I'm talking about a multicultural society. Okay, I grew up there, but you know what makes my Filipino-ness different is when my mom and dad were in the Philippines, they had town fiestas, okay, and they knew everybody, and they decided that that's their community. I translated that value here. I am a Carsonite. I come from Carson, okay. I joined the government of Carson because that's where I grew up in, but my value is Filipino because when I got there, I decided I'm gonna make a difference. I'm gonna serve the community, and I'm going to respect my elders, and I'm going to show respect to everybody who's around me. Does that make sense to you? So I am talking to you guys, because guess what? That was 20 years ago. You know what I'm doing now? I am a kindergarten teacher. I go down Avalon, I'm on Manchester Boulevard. Okay, Manchester is in the middle of South Central. Okay, I teach little kids who are about this high. I have 2 types of kids, African American and Hispanic. And they're sitting there and they don't know how to get along yet. But I'm a Filipino there and I can't speak Spanish yet, but I'm gonna learn how to speak Spanish like Mr. Itliong. If he can learn to speak Japanese, I can learn to speak Spanish, right? And I'm going to try to teach them how to get along. When I ran, that was what it was all about. How do you get along? Because you guys, even on the internet, it's about Do you know how to get along? And you know what? Filipinos know how to get along. And that's what you're going to be bringing to where you go. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to tell you where it is. But all I can tell you is, if you're Filipino, you've got a really, really good chance in the United States because you know how to get along. So that's my message to you. Yeah, go Kildale!
As part of your gifts, we have a gift for all of you who came today. There's lens cleaners there. You can wipe your iPad, your tablet, your iPhone, your glasses, your camera, your video cam, everything. It's great. And it's, yes please, it's compliments of Inquirer.net, the news online, and it's for you free. Please take them. Take some for your relatives and everybody else, whoever has a camera or wears glasses. Which is every Filipino. So, also, FANS, Filipino American National Historical Society, has some products here. If you want to see the merchandise they have. Johnny, I almost called him Larry. Johnny has T-shirts that he's selling for this foundation to help him get the word out on the real history of the UFW and his dad. And I wanted to open up the questions yet, but we're running out of time. We still have a little bit of food left, but if there are any questions that people would like to ask, this is or else, yeah, see us
Oh yes,
afterwards.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why October? Why did you choose October as the Philippine National?
Did we do this already?
Yeah.
She was late.
I was
You're
late. Yeah. I
Okay.
know.
Well, we have a handout. And it explains it. Well, briefly.
For Lawrence.
It's the first time that the Filipinos landed into the United States.
Correct.
That's
1857.
on Narrow Bay.
Is that in Norway?
Yeah, that's in the handout.
All right. And the birthday of Larry Itliong?
Happens to be in October as
Just
well,
happens to be my birthday.
which was yesterday.
Ah.
And that's why we have cake. So we still have cake. So let's eat the cake because we're not going to take it home. There's a question in the back?
No.
Oh, announcement. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Florante, before you let
This is Mercedes. She's one of the librarians here. We have 3
Hi, I'm Mercedes. I'm one of the librarians here. I'm also in charge of the teens. And let me take this opportunity to please encourage your teens and tweens, because we do have a lot of activities in the library. Second Wednesdays of every month we have game days. Third Wednesdays of every month we have art activities and many others. And then for next month, let me endorse or let me promote, we're gonna have an author talk. We're having Benjamin Pimentel, or his